They say eventually everybody comes to Quidi Vidi Lake, some for sport, some forever. And as always in St. John's, where you came from mattered, including at the Regatta itself.
Initially, all of the rowers would have been working class. These were people that, were working down in St. John's Harbour. These were fishermen. These were people working in the trades. And they wanted a day of relaxation, a day of leisure. And so this is where they came. But initially, it was all about the workers. It was the working men's holiday. And so it's always, traditionally, we've always had the race on a Wednesday. And Wednesday was the day because the merchant classes didn't mind releasing their staff on a Wednesday, because Wednesday was always the day you had a half day off anyhow. So really what they were now doing, you were only giving over the rest of the day.
But before boats ever sliced these waters, horses were racing on the ice. The oldest reference to sport in this province is an account of horse-drawn sleighs racing on the frozen lake in the late 1700s. It was called tilting and later ice racing, and the practice continued well into the 1940s. Now, horses weren't the only animal used for sport at the lake. Here's Johnny Burke, the bard of Prescott Street, on the Regatta's Greasy Pig contest in 1912.
But to add to the difficulty of retaining him, he was carefully greased all over the body and legs. At a given signal, he was released and was the prize of any who could capture him. Squealing as only a pig can, he rushed through the crowds who would try to capture him. Being no respecter of persons, he would bowl over men, women, and children.
Men would also test their balance in another type of contest, scuttling along a greasy pole. If they reached the end, there was a prize waiting for them. A bag of flour. But a big sporting attraction on the lake was the open field on the west side. It was, and still is, used for matches of all kinds. The King George V is one of the oldest standing soccer stadiums in North America.
Here come the motorcycles.
The field welcomed Charles and Diana in 1983.
The princess inside. There they are. And listen to the crowd.
Its most famous match was held 2 years later, when more than 13,000 fans watched as Canada beat Honduras to qualify for its first, and so far only, World Cup challenge. Next to the field was Memorial Stadium, built at the end of the Second World War.
That was to remember those that died in the First World War.
Memorial Stadium was home to senior hockey, the St. John's Caps, and later the St. John's Maple Leafs. And anyone over a certain age in St. John's has a story to tell about a concert there. Tina Turner, Bob Dylan, David Bowie, or the Tragically Hip. Even the Pope made an appearance. The decision to turn the stadium into a grocery store divided residents of St. John's. It also stands as the divider between two cemeteries, one Catholic, one Anglican, and both began in the same place.
I first saw those two graves probably soon after we moved in here in 1970, because we used to walk the graveyard, and then my own people are now buried here. I have a plot just about 100 feet behind me here, so it's going to be a short walk for me when my time comes.
Shane O'Day found those headstones in Mount Carmel Cemetery, and they're older than the graveyard itself.
What the stone says to the memory of Mary Haley, who departed this life 22nd November 1827, may she rest in peace. Well, there's not a cemetery here for 18 years later.
Those graves were first placed in a Roman Catholic cemetery on Longs Hill, in a site that is now the parking lot of the Kirk, the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. In 1846, after a fire ravaged the city, a typhoid epidemic broke out.
There was a sense that the bodies in the ground, rain running through them, could leach out typhoid into the general air of the town.
Cemeteries in the core of the city were shut down, and some graves in the Longs Hill Cemetery were dug up and moved out to Quidi Vidi Lake, headstones and all. Some were placed in the Anglican Cemetery on Forest Road, others in the Mount Carmel graveyard on the other side of the lake. As for the Irish part of the old cemetery, that remains at the Kirk.
It is now buried in hundreds of thousands of tons of Presbyterian parking lot, keeping the Catholic souls well underground.